It's 1962, a cold morning at the drag strip. Engines rumble in the distance. The smell of high-octane fuel hangs in the air. On one side, a brand new Chrysler machine, carrying the name everyone would soon fear, the Hemi. On the other, something almost nobody expected, a big, heavy Wedge engine, plain-looking, underrated, almost ignored. But what happened next shocked everyone watching, because that so-called ordinary engine didn't just compete, it beat the Hemi. And most people today have no idea it even existed. This is the story of the forgotten monster, the 413 Max Wedge, and the truth behind how it nearly rewrote Mopar history. In the early 1960s, Detroit was at war, not a quiet corporate rivalry. This was brutal, loud, public. Ford, Chevy, and Chrysler were locked in an all-out horsepower race. Every brand wanted one thing: dominance at the drag strip. Back then, winning on Sunday meant selling on Monday, and nothing sold cars like quarter-mile dominance. Dealerships across America plastered race victories on their windows. Salesmen pointed to trophies in showrooms. Customers walked in asking for the car that won last weekend. This wasn't just marketing, this was survival. Because the brand that dominated the strip dominated the market. And in 1962, everyone was hungry. Chrysler already had a reputation. Their hemispherical combustion chamber design, the early Hemi, was known for power and efficiency. But it was expensive, complicated, and not easy to mass produce. The tooling alone cost a fortune. The machining required precision most factories couldn't maintain, and the assembly slower than anything else on the line. So engineers inside Chrysler faced a question: what if they could build something simpler, but just as deadly? That's where the Wedge came in. At first glance, the Wedge engine looked basic. Instead of the complex dome-shaped combustion chamber of a Hemi, it used a simple angled design, easier to manufacture, cheaper to produce. But simple didn't mean weak, not even close. By 1959, Chrysler had already developed a 413 cubic inch big block. With a 4.1875-inch bore and a 3.75-inch stroke, it was a solid foundation. Strong, reliable, built for torque. It powered luxury sedans, highway cruisers, heavy Chryslers that needed low-end grunt to move their weight down the boulevard. But in stock form, it wasn't enough to dominate, so the engineers pushed it further, much further. They started with the block itself, reinforced, thicker webbing around the mains, nodular iron crankshaft that could take punishment most engines would never see. Then they looked at the heads. They increased compression to a brutal 11.0.1, high for the era. Valve sizes grew. Ports were reshaped for maximum flow. Everything pointed toward one goal: air, fuel, combustion, power. Then they added massive cross-ram intake manifolds. Two long intake runners stretched across the engine, feeding each cylinder with a dense, high-speed air-fuel mixture. Each side carried a 4-barrel carburetor. That wasn't just aggressive, it was insane for a factory setup. Imagine opening the hood of a brand new car and seeing that. Two carburetors sitting on top of aluminum tubes that looked like they belonged on a race car. Because they did. Officially, Chrysler rated the 413 Max Wedge at 410 horsepower. But here's the truth most people don't realize. That number was a lie, not a mistake, a deliberate understatement. In real-world conditions, these engines were pushing closer to 420, even 430 horsepower, and torque around 460 lb-ft, enough to twist drive shafts and snap axles if you weren't careful. Insurance companies were already nervous. NASCAR and NHRA were watching the horsepower wars closely. So manufacturers learned to play the game. Rate it lower, build it stronger, let the results speak. And that's when things started to get interesting. When the 413 Max Wedge hit the streets, and more importantly the drag strip, it didn't come quietly. Cars like the Dodge Dart and Plymouth Savoy were suddenly running times nobody expected. We're talking low 13-second quarter miles, straight from the factory. Back then, that was terrifyingly fast. Most muscle cars were running mid to high 14s. Hot rods with thousands of dollars in modifications were struggling to break into the 13s. And here comes Chrysler with a car you could buy on a Tuesday and race on Saturday. No break-in period, no special tuning, just show up and destroy. And with minor tuning, open headers, better tires, a slight tweak to ignition timing, these cars dipped into the 12s at over 110 mph. Drivers would pull up to the line, and competitors didn't know what they were looking at. A plain-looking sedan, stock appearance, maybe a small badge on the fender, then the flag dropped, and that Dodge or Plymouth would explode off the line like it was shot from a cannon, front end rising, rear tires clawing for grip. The sound, unforgettable. But there was a problem. Actually, several. The cross-ram intake, as powerful as it was, had a weakness. Those long intake runners created incredible high RPM airflow, but at low speeds, throttle response suffered. Drivers complained. Off-the-line response could feel sluggish if you weren't in the power band. You had to know the engine, understand where it lived, keep the RPMs up, stay in the sweet spot between 3,500 and 5,500 RPM, and you were flying. Drop below that, you were waiting for it to wake up. And then there was heat, lots of it. With that high compression and aggressive fueling, engines ran hot, very hot. Detonation became a constant threat. Blow a head gasket and your race was over before it even began. Cooling systems struggled. Radiators that worked fine in normal cars couldn't keep up. On a hot day, at the strip, after multiple passes, temperature gauges climbed into the danger zone. Mechanics would later say it was like walking a tightrope. One mistake, and the engine would punish you. Tune it too lean, and it would detonate. Too rich, and you'd foul the plugs. Timing too advanced, and you'd hear the death rattle of pre-ignition. But Chrysler didn't back down. Instead, they doubled down. By 1963, the Max Wedge evolved. Same 413 cubic inches, but now everything was more extreme. The Stage 2 version featured larger valves, improved cylinder heads, and even more aggressive cam profiles. Airflow increased, power climbed. The camshaft had more duration, more lift, more overlap. It wasn't meant to idle smoothly. It wasn't meant to be civilized. Fire it up, and it shook. A lumpy, aggressive idle that told everyone within earshot this was not a normal car. Still officially rated at 415 horsepower. Still, not telling the whole story. Dyno tests done years later suggested these Stage 2 engines were making 440, maybe 450 horsepower at the crank, and the torque curve looked like a mountain range. Flat, wide, relentless, and at the track, the results were undeniable. At events like the NHRA Winter Nationals, Max Wedge cars began dominating their class. Lightweight Plymouths and Dodges, stripped down and purpose-built, were running times that embarrassed bigger, heavier competitors. Drivers launched hard, the rear squatted, front wheels lifted. Crowds watched in disbelief, because these weren't exotic race-only machines. These were factory-backed monsters. You could walk into a dealership, order one, and drive it home. Sure, they came with disclaimers. No warranty on the engine if you raced it. Manual transmission only. No radio. No heater in some cases. But that didn't matter. People wanted speed, and Chrysler delivered. But then, everything changed. In early 1964, Chrysler introduces a new weapon. The 426 Hemi. Bigger, more advanced, more powerful. With a 4.25-inch bore and 3.75-inch stroke, it displaced 426 cubic inches. Compression ratios climbed to 12.5.1. Horsepower? Officially 425. Unofficially much higher. The hemispherical heads returned. That complex, expensive design that Chrysler had moved away from, but now, with better manufacturing and a clear goal, total domination, they brought it back, and it was glorious. Massive valves, incredible airflow, a design that could breathe like nothing else on the market. And just like that, the spotlight shifted. The Hemi became the legend, the king, the engine everyone remembers. Magazine covers, race wins, the name that would define Mopar performance for generations. But here's what most people don't know. In its early days, the Hemi wasn't unbeatable. Not yet. Because the 413 Max Wedge was still there, still fighting, still winning. At several early drag events in 1964, Max Wedge cars held their ground. Some even outran the new Hemi setups, especially when dialed in properly. Why? Because the Wedge had something the early Hemi didn't fully master yet. Consistency. The Max Wedge was simpler, easier to tune, more predictable. A good mechanic could tune one in his sleep. Jetting the carbs, setting the timing, adjusting the valves, it was all straightforward. No mysteries, no exotic procedures, just solid, proven engineering. The Hemi, on the other hand, was powerful, but temperamental. It needed perfect tuning, perfect conditions. The valve arrangement was complex. Adjusting them required more time, more skill. The fuel distribution had to be exactly right, or one cylinder would run lean while another ran rich. Get it wrong, and all that potential stayed locked inside. Otherwise, it could lose, and in drag racing, consistency wins races. You can have the fastest car in the world, but if it only runs perfect 1 out of every 5 passes, you're going home empty-handed. The Max Wedge showed up ready every time. One driver reportedly said, "The Hemi had more potential, but the Wedge showed up ready to fight every time." Another mechanic recalled, "We'd see guys with the new Hemis struggling in the pits, adjusting, tweaking, scratching their heads. Meanwhile, the Wedge guys, they'd make a pass, check the plugs, and be ready to go again." That reliability mattered, especially in the early days, when the Hemi was still being figured out. When teams were learning its quirks, its needs, its temperament. The Max Wedge didn't have temperament, it had attitude. But Chrysler wasn't building two kings. They made a decision, and it would seal the fate of the 413 forever. By late 1964, all focus shifted to the 426 Hemi. Development resources, engineering talent, factory support. Everything went to the new engine. Corporate meetings were clear. The Hemi was the future. It had the name, the mystique, the potential to become legendary. The Max Wedge was left behind. Production slowed, then stopped. Parts support dwindled. Factory backing disappeared. The cars that had been winning races just months before were suddenly yesterday's news. Just like that, one of the most dangerous engines of its time faded into the background. And the Hemi went on to dominate. By 1965 and beyond, it ruled NHRA events. It became a symbol of raw American power, a legend that still lives today. You say Hemi, and people know what you mean. Power, performance, Mopar muscle. But the truth? It didn't rise alone. It stood on the shoulders of the Max Wedge. Because without the 413, there is no 426. The cross-ram intake design, born on the Wedge. The aggressive factory tuning philosophy, refined with the Wedge. The idea that a production car could dominate the drag strip straight from the showroom, proven by the Wedge. Chrysler learned what worked, what didn't. How to build an engine that could survive brutal racing conditions and still be sold to the public. They learned how to market performance, how to support racers, how to create a reputation. All of that came from the Max Wedge program, and yet, it's rarely mentioned. Only around 2,000 to 3,000 Max Wedge cars were ever produced across all versions. Many were raced hard, pushed to their limits, blown up, scrapped, forgotten. Junkyards in the 70s were full of them. Clapped out race cars with no value, engines pulled and parted out, bodies crushed. Nobody thought to save them. Why would they? The Hemi was the legend. Today, surviving examples are rare, and when they do appear, they remind people of something incredible, an engine that wasn't supposed to win, but did anyway. So how did a simple Wedge beat a Hemi? It wasn't magic, it was engineering. A 4.875-inch bore pushed close to the limits of the block casting. Thick cylinder walls, but not forgiving if overbored too far. A crankshaft built to handle massive torque loads, and a top-end design that prioritized airflow at speed. It didn't try to be perfect. It tried to be brutal. And for a brief moment in history, that was enough. In the end, the 413 Max Wedge didn't lose because it was weak. It lost because something newer came along, something flashier, something that captured the spotlight. But if you look closely at those early drag strip battles, if you really dig into the numbers, the results, the stories, you'll see it. The truth most people missed. The engine that could go toe-to-toe with a Hemi, and sometimes beat it. The 413 Max Wedge wasn't just a stepping stone, it was a warning shot, a reminder that raw, simple engineering done right can shake the entire industry, even if history forgets your name. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments what engine or rivalry you want to see next. And if you think the Max Wedge deserves more respect, make sure to subscribe, because there are a lot more forgotten legends hiding in plain sight.